Let me start with a question. Are people born racist? Most psychologists and sociologists would say no. Children are not born with ideas about racial hierarchy or superiority. These beliefs are learned over time through society, culture, and institutions. Understanding this is key if we want to understand how racism works, because racism is not just about an individual prejudice. It can also be systemic. And journalist and author Reni Eddo Lodge argues in her book, Why I'm No Longer Talking to White People About Race, conversations about racism often focuses too much on individual intentions and not enough about structures of power. To understand this, we need to look at psychology, sociology, and education. So let's look and delve deeper into the psychology of racism. Psychologists explain prejudice partly through the social learning and modeling behavior. Children observe the world around them and learn attitudes from the people and systems they interact with. Bandura's Boba doll experiment kind of models this of when a child sees an adult punch a doll, they then mimic this behavior and think it's okay to punch the doll as well. This process begins with primary socialization. It starts at home. Primary socialization happens in early childhood through family and closed environments. Children pick up cues from their parents, relatives, conversations that they overhear, and reactions to people who are different. Even when prejudice is not explicit, subtle messages influence their attitudes. And later in secondary socialization at school, it occurs through wider institutions like media, like their peer groups, as well as the workplace. This is where society begins to reinforce ideas about identity, belonging, and status. One famous experiment revealed just how early these ideas can form. The baby doll study. In 1940s, psychologist Kenneth Clark conducted a groundbreaking experiment known as the Clark doll test, and I really recommend you watch it because it's actually heartbreaking, and I will link it in the description box below. They showed children two dolls, a black doll and a white doll, and children were asked questions such as, which one is the good doll? Which one is the bad doll? Which doll looks like you? The results was deeply concerning and it shook me. Many black children chose the white doll as the good doll and the black doll as the bad doll, as well as ethnic minority children and even white children as well. This suggested that children had already internalized societal messages linking whiteness with positivity and blackness with negativity. The study demonstrated that racial bias can be absorbed very early in childhood, even without direct teaching. So this brings us to the idea of micro-level racism. Micro-level racism happens in everyday interactions. It can appear in stereotypes, assumptions about intelligence, racial jokes, expectations placed on individuals. These interactions might seem small individually, but when repeated over time, they accumulate, and these shape experiences and opportunities. However, racism doesn't operate at the level of individual behavior. It also exists within systems. This leads us on to the macro level racism. At the macro level, racism can be embedded within institutions such as education, housing, and employment. This doesn't always require individuals to intentionally discriminate. Instead, this can emerge through patterns of how systems operate. For example, in the UK, data from the Department of Education has shown that Black Caribbean pupils and Roma Gypsy pupils and Irish traveller pupils are more likely to be permanently excluded from school compared to any other student group. Sociologists argue that this raises important questions about bias, expectations, and institutional practices within the education system. One explanation comes from the labeling theory. Labeling theory suggests that when an authority figure labels individuals in certain ways, such as disruptive, difficult, or low ability, those labels can influence how others treat them. Teachers may unconsciously expect certain behaviors from the students that they have labeled. Students may internalize these expectations, and this label can become a self-fulfilling prophecy where expectations shape behavior and outcomes. Another powerful experiment was the Jane Elliott experiment, where she studied the power of social structures. that shaped dramatically the illustrated classroom. And after the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr., Eliot wanted to teach his students about discrimination. On the first day, blue-eyed children were told that they were superior or given privileges, and then brown-eyed children were treated as inferior. Within hours, the superior group became confident and dominant, while the inferior group became withdrawn and insecure. The next day, Eliot reversed the roles. The experiment showed quickly how systems of privilege and discrimination can influence behavior and identity. Another important issue is representation in education. For many years, school curricula and textbooks have been written primarily from a single dominant perspective. Much of the traditional history education focuses on European figures and narratives, while the contributions of other communities receive less attention. Sometimes these stories are highlighted mainly during events during Black History Month. While Black History Month plays an important role in celebrating contributions and raising awareness, some scholars argue that restricting these histories to just one month can unintentionally separate them from mainstream narratives, rather than integrating them fully into the history. Representation matters because it shapes how students understand the world and their place within it. Within our school textbooks, if we incorporated diverse contributions into the curriculum, it can help challenge stereotypes and broaden perspectives. These issues are closely connected with discussions about privilege and structural inequality. In the book, Why I'm No Longer Talking to White People About Race, Reni Eddo Lodge argues that conversations about racism are often discussed within systemic power. Instead, they only focus on whether the individuals are personally racist, but structural inequality about patterns in the institutions, policies, and opportunities are rarely discussed. Understanding these structures explain why inequalities can persist even when individuals believe that they are being treated unfairly. When we look at psychology and sociology together, a clearer picture emerges. Racism operates on multiple levels, through individual attitudes and stereotypes, through everyday interactions, through institutions and systems, even our curriculum. Research like Clark Doll Test Classroom and Jane Elliott's experiment and the sociological analysis of education systems reveal how social environments shape beliefs and outcomes. But understanding these processes allows to show something hopeful. If prejudice is learned, then it can also be challenged and unlearned as well. And education, awareness, and honest conversations about power and inequality are essential steps towards change. And if this video resonated with you, and if the research in this video resonated with you, leave a comment down below. And actually go and do your own research as well about the different experiments, like the baby doll experiment, as well as the Jane Elliott study. And let me know your thoughts on it. Is it just a micro level discrimination, or is it a systemic and macro level discrimination, or do the both interlink and we need a systemic change? Let me know down in the comments below, and if you found this video interesting, like, subscribe, share it with a friend, and also if you are looking for a speaker to talk about DEI or organizational psychology to your youth or within the corporate or education sector, leave me a message or leave a comment down below and we shall be in touch. Take care, bye!